Our first speaker of this afternoon is McKaila Ferguson, who is an MA candidate at the Department of Art History and Visual Studies, and she, as you can see, is going to be giving a paper called Raynershine, Gordon Rayner, Abstract Expressionism and the Artists' Jazz Band. McKaila, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is McKaila Ferguson, and I'm an MA candidate in the Department of Art History and Visual Studies at the University of Victoria. My current research focuses on the history of collecting and collectors in North America in the 20th century. I've always been interested in why we collect things and tracking the movement of objects between people and institutions across time. My research project at the University of Victoria uncovers the collecting practice and social network of Isabelle Pollard, a 20th century female art patron of the Art Gallery of Greater Victoria. This project invites a study of Pollard, the AGGV's early Japanese print collecting initiatives, and the market for contemporary Japanese prints in 1960s Victoria. While I won't be presenting today on the topic of my MA thesis, I will be revisiting a group of Toronto artists whom I've been interested in for a while, headed by Canadian abstract expressionist Gordon Rayner. This group went on to form the Artists' Jazz Band, an influential Canadian free jazz group, initially composed of Toronto visual artists associated with the abstract expressionist movement of the late 1950s and 60s. Specifically, I will discuss the role their music played in the creation of a print portfolio featuring works by 9 artists, published in an edition of 100. What is especially unique about this portfolio is the inclusion of 2 of their jazz LPs recorded by the band. The Artists' Jazz Band was composed of Canadian visual artists involved with the Isaacs Gallery in Toronto. Its founding members were Gordon Rayner, drums, Robert Markle, saxophone and piano, Nobuo Kubota, saxophone, Dennis Burton, saxophone, Richard Gorman, bass, and Graham Coughtry, trombone. Many other artists also played on a casual basis, including Bill Smith, Michael Snow, Jim Jones, and Gerald McAdam, among others. Collectively self-taught, the band was formed in 1962 in a studio over the First Floor Jazz Club. This free jazz group performed at exhibition openings, clubs, and universities across Ontario. Some of these young artists were initially skeptical of abstract expressionism. Their youthful sense of mission drew them to more realist artists, but being alert to new developments, which were introduced by foreign newspapers and art magazines, as well as by their Painters 11 mentors, they broadened their horizons to form a supportive community of their own. Meanwhile, their love of jazz as a music resistant of conventions and their tight-knit social group drew increasingly toward working in sound. Gordon Rayner wrote, "We would talk all night and longer. We'd have jam sessions. I was playing drum brushes on the back of beer cases. Gladstone was playing flute, Coughtry was singing the blues, and Mike Snow already playing his brilliant piano. This music has been more of a social tie than our private art. We always had that in common, the fun, the gatherings, not when we were alone struggling in studios, but when we got together at those great parties, people pounding garbage cans and singing the blues." By 1962, these young painters were announcing themselves and their work to the world of Canadian art. They became some of the first in a generation to take the ethos of modernism, jazz, and abstract expressionism fully to heart, and by enacting this ethos in music, they became the Artists' Jazz Band. Inspired by their predecessors, these artists tended to see their work as a visual counterpoint to music improvisation. Abstract expressionism, as an art form, gave these artists the confidence to foreground free jazz as an essential aspect of their identities as visual artists. While the connection between abstract expressionism and jazz has been widely discussed in North America, this specific print portfolio has not been critically engaged with in scholarship. The synthesis of music and visual art is apparent here, with each art form in conversation with the other. Jazz influences are clear by visually analyzing the prints themselves. However, this connection is made explicit with the unique inclusion of phonographs in the portfolio. A collector would have both an auditory and a visual experience with this collection. The AJB's 1973 LP titled The Artist Jazz Band features 4 tracks, each approximately 20 minutes long. The music ranges from vigorous and chaotic to sparse and highly considered. Some of the pieces use compositional devices that counter the band's reputation for being resolutely improvised. The most consistent element is humor, reflected in the titles that play off the band members' names. Looks Like Snow, Raynershine, and Marco Slow as examples. Side 3 of this 2 LP set features Raynershine, described by Gordon Rayner. While listening to a previously recorded tape of themselves playing percussion instruments, the artists play blocks of chords according to a set of signals that in the loosest sense could be considered conducting. As seen here, each portfolio includes 2 LPs, a cover page, and 2 inserts featuring images of the band members, as well as some of their commentary. The inside jacket reads, Avram Isaacs of the Isaacs Gallery in Toronto heard the Artist Jazz Band play their concert at the University of Windsor and decided something that we've been thinking about for a long time now, to put a good record out of what we do and to accompany the music with our other artwork. If you're in Victoria, you can borrow a first edition copy from the University of Victoria Music Library like I did. Otherwise, you can listen to the tracks on YouTube if you're interested. The next year, 1974, the portfolio was published by the Isaacs Gallery. The theme of each artist's print relates to their own interpretation of jazz. The prints included in each portfolio are Terry Forster's Dear Av. This has a note to Avram Isaacs, which reads, Dear Av, well, here we go. The AJB is a pure jazz band, just one mind that belongs to all of us, and that's jazz. Love, Terry. We also have Nobuo Kubota's Blue Square from 1974. Graham Coftree's Untitled from 1973. Michael Snow's Chords from 1974. Jim Jones's Blue Motor from 1974. Gerald McAdams' Untitled from 1974. I love this one. Harvey Cohen's Architecture is Frozen Music from 1974. Robert Markle's Untitled from 1974. And my favorite, Gordon Rayner's Drumstick from 1974. At the top, we can see a figure drumming in 11 sequences, almost like stop-motion animation. Movement is also present in the lines curving through the image. One of his drumsticks is affixed to the bottom of each of his prints. This harkens back to his earlier works where he incorporated found objects, reflecting the neo-dada movement occurring in Toronto's art scene in the 1950s. What is most interesting to me about this piece is how each rainbow in each portfolio is different. While the other elements of his print remain the same, he took the time to create 100 different rainbows for the whole run of the portfolio. You can see 5 examples here where it's clear that he's working with different levels of abstraction. And Rayner was the only artist in the group to include a variation on his print. Like the fates of many print portfolios, once they're given to or purchased by an auction house, the prints are usually split up and sold individually. That is how this piece, number 61 by Gordon Rayner, ended up in my personal collection after I purchased it from an auction house in the Okanagan Valley. I'm on a mission to collect them all, just like Pokemon, including the accompanying LPs. Only a handful of these portfolios remain intact as a collection. One is at the National Gallery of Canada in Ottawa, another at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Montreal, which is where I stole all the other images from, and another in a private collection in Vancouver. For this group, art openings doubled as concerts, and throughout the 60s and 70s, the AJB's blend of music and art helped its members gain, for Canadian artists, unprecedented attention. Coftree, Rayner, and Markle pose here for a 1965 cover of Canadian Art magazine, parodying their roles as jazz-playing artists. I love this image. Moreover, during the 60s, the AJB played at a reception for Andy Warhol in an artist studio after an Art Gallery of Ontario opening. The influence of abstract expressionism gave these artists the license, confidence, and motivation not only to play freely improvised music, but to foreground it as an essential part of their identities as artists. They were empowered to do so by a tradition of experimentation, introduced by influences from Europe, Quebec, and New York City that had been established by the formation of the Painters 11 in Toronto's visual art world. Their success gave the AJB permission to pursue its analogy in music. They were committed to building art from the ground up when they painted. It was a logical step to do the same thing when they played music. Thank you.
Wonderful talk, McKaila, and a beautifully presented slideshow, it must be said.